Hey everybody, Yankee here. Yesterday, I posted a picture on my Instagram of me carrying my new Colt Python 3-inch here, the Elite model, and people were concerned about how the holster covered the trigger and trigger guard. This particular holster only covers to the very rear of the actual trigger itself. It doesn't cover the entire trigger guard and doesn't go back beyond the back of the trigger. A lot of people were concerned by that. They were like, is that dangerous or is that appropriate? Is that okay? And if it is okay or appropriate, is there any advantage to this over one that would cover more of the trigger guard and more of the trigger? Well, first off, yes, this is how your holster should actually fit if it's built to make it as easy to draw as possible. It just needs to prevent anything from getting in front of that trigger. Be it your own finger or something else in your daily activities, you're walking along, you brush against something. This wants to prevent anything from getting to the front of that trigger so that it can't pull that trigger. So this is actually the optimal way to cover your trigger, because not only does it actually stop anything from pulling the trigger, but it doesn't interfere as much in drawing the gun in a couple of different ways. To demonstrate that, let's look at this holster that actually covers more of the trigger guard and more of the trigger. Now, the way this interferes is because since this is set a little higher on your belt, which usually is if it covers more, the belt usually corresponds to where the top of the holster is or close to it on the actual trigger guard. This would set a little lower on your belt, would make it harder to get your hand behind the grip because you're down where your belt is holding it tighter to your body. And the holster itself is kind of in the way of getting there if you're kind of feeling for it. It will guide you there, but it's going to be hard to get your hand behind it because this is going to be held tightly to your body because the belt is so close to it, doesn't ride quite as high. Also, it makes it to where if you're drawing the gun out backwards with any backwards movement whatsoever, makes it a lot harder. See this, I'm pulling really hard there. It takes quite a bit to get it moving. It takes a lot more of an upward motion to move this gun out of this holster than it would the other one. If you look at the gun back here in the original holster that covers less of the trigger guard, when you go to draw the gun, not only is it holding it a little higher because here's the belt loops, here's the top of the holster, so the gun itself is sitting a little higher. Not only do you have more room to get your hand in there, there's no leather that's going to interfere with anything either there. And plus, when you go to actually draw, since there's not as much leather covering the back of the trigger guard here, you don't have to lift up as high before you can start your backward movement, so you can draw more smoothly and more easily and get that barrel pointed at your target faster. So there's lots of advantages to having it cut like this. Like I said, it holds it higher, so you got more room to get behind your grip. That's more the soft part of your body. Instead of being down on the hard part of your hip bone, it's up more towards, in my case, the very soft part of your body in your lower abdomen. So it makes it easier to get your fingers behind it. There's no leather in the way, so that makes it easier for you to get your fingers behind it. And like I said, since the trigger guard isn't being blocked as much, you can draw with more of a backwards motion, getting your gun on target much quicker and coming out more easily. So in actuality, there's nothing wrong with a holster like this that covers more of the trigger guard. It is going to make it a little bit different on how you draw it and everything, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't choose this. If you prefer having a trigger that's completely covered, get a holster that completely covers the trigger. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly fine choice to choose a holster like this one. I just don't see why you'd want to, because this not only does the job just as well, it actually does it better in many ways, especially if you ever have to draw your gun.